So Charlie Slater here, BBC Radio Nottingham's Notts County commentator and correspondent. Charlie, you grew up in Manchester, so did you always picture yourself having a career in sports?
I always wanted to be in sport, yeah, certainly. As a kid, like everybody, grew up playing football, dreamt of playing football, dreamt of playing for Manchester United. Didn't quite work out, and at some point the letters from the football club stopped coming, and you realise, right, if I'm going to stay involved in this, then you need to find another way of being involved in the sport. And also played basketball, and through my basketball did a little bit of media stuff as far as being the other side of the camera, and thought that's probably not a bad job. Did work experience at Radio Manchester in 2008, which was a good time to go there, because Manchester United were going really, really well. That was when they won the Champions League. So I remember going to the Barcelona press conference at Old Trafford. Alex Ferguson and Ryan Giggs were sat there, and I remember being sat in this giant room inside Old Trafford on work experience with the biggest names in all of like sort of British football and journalism, and just thought, man, this is the life for me. In fact, one of my jobs one day, because the Europa League final or whatever it was called, it might have been the UEFA Cup back in those days, probably about 3 at the time, was being held in Manchester, and Rangers were in it against a Russian team, it might have been Zenit St Petersburg, and there was 100,000 Rangers fans in Manchester that day. It was a red hot baking day, and I remember coming in on work experience and saying, right, what you got for me today? Because I always want to know, like, don't let me sit here at my desk, let me go and do something. And the editor was like, right, your job is to go and stand next to the radio car and make sure that no drunken football fans try to use it as a toilet. I was like, great. So yeah, I mean, that amazingly, combined with a managerial change at Man City, I think Sven had just left, and Manchester United, as I say, going really well, convinced me that this is something that I wanted to do.
How old were you then when you started that?
When I went on work experience, I was 19. To be honest with you, look, I went to uni at 18 just to play basketball. My degree didn't reflect what I actually wanted to do. I did an English degree because I didn't know what I wanted to do, and then quickly found out what I wanted to do by the age of 19. So like, crikey, I mean, you're not even 19 yet, you guys are ahead of my thinking.
Yeah, so then you started in Nottingham Trent doing broadcast journalism. How did that come about?
I'd emailed everyone. I feel like I'd emailed every single local BBC radio station, TV station, commercial station, Sky, BT, Satansa, or whoever it was back then, you name it. I'd been in contact with them and basically got nothing back. And one person came back to me, really. More than one, but basically one, which was Colin Fray at BBC Radio Nottingham. He's Nottingham Forest commentator, he's the sports editor at Radio Nottingham, and he said, yeah, just, you can come in and just watch how the show goes out one day from back in the studio. So you're not at the ground or anything like that, you're just in the studio watching how they drive the desks, the faders, the buttons, taking control, splitting frequencies, editing, turning material around really quickly, half-time highlights, full-time highlights, little end packages, turning the interviews around. Just sat there and watched people do that. Loved it. I travelled 4 hours to do it that day, and made sure that I told one of the people who I was kind of shadowing that day. They were like, oh, where do you live? I was like, oh, at the moment, 4 hours away from here. You travelled all that way? Just yeah. That got back to Colin Fray, and obviously like going that extra mile or 200 of them made a difference. And eventually Colin Fray was like, look, there might be some paid work here. Working is part of the backroom team. It's a way of getting your foot in the door and see where you can go from there, and that was all I needed. So that's when I decided to do the Masters at Nottingham Trent, because it gave me a reason to be based here. Got as many shifts in as I possibly could at Radio Nottingham, worked in every area of the station that I could do. Any opportunity that came my way, I grabbed it. I worked in the news team, I worked in the sports team. At that point, like I said, beggars can't be choosers, beggar, but at the same time you're in there desperate for work and desperate for opportunity. And so I looked at it and was just like, you know what? Let me work in every department, and eventually I'll be able to narrow it down and just work in sport.
Can you remember what your first live broadcast was?
Yeah, I messed it up. 10 o'clock, there was a late bulletin reading shift. From you come in at 3 o'clock and you work until 11. Not the most sociable of hours. It had to be 3 minutes exactly. Otherwise, it crashed into the next programme coming out, and it sounded really, really messy. And the bulletin was going out across the East Midlands, so it was on Radio Leicester, Derby, Nottingham and Lincoln. And I was terrified. I was physically shaking. I was thinking at the time, like, it's a good job I'm not on TV here and people can't see, because I was shaking, like I couldn't control it. And I went to press a bit of audio, and because I was shaking, I double tapped the button, and so it skipped the bit of audio that I wanted to play and played the next clip instead. And I was panicking, and I didn't drop my mic fader, and I'm going, oh my goodness, what do I do now? Fortunately I didn't swear. And then by the time I'd figured out what to do, and now, because I skipped a bit of audio, I'm 25 seconds short. Now if that would happen to me, I could just make up something about the weather and just freestyle it or something like that. I mean, well, your weather tomorrow is going to be blah, blah, blah. But at that point, you don't know that, you're not comfortable and composed enough to do that sort of stuff, you don't have that level of confidence. That's terrified. And so yeah, like, there was dead air, which is the worst thing in the world. Dead air in radio. 5 seconds of dead air in radio feels like an eternity. There was like 25 seconds of dead air, and I just thought, oh my, that's it, I'm never going to get another chance, blah, 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 blah. Come outside, it couldn't have been nicer to me. All the people like David Jackson, who I still work with to this day, who's a friend of mine now, couldn't have been nicer. Look, don't worry about it, we've all been there, blah, 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 blah. Nobody died. And that's the thing that I have said to a lot of younger people coming in and they're nervous and blah, blah, blah. You're not performing open heart surgery. You know, you're not working like the heroes do at the QMC. If there's 20 seconds of dead air, it's only the air that died, nobody else. So it's fine, you just brush it off and keep moving forward. And, you know, I've not double tapped since, and my nerves were nowhere near as bad come 8 o'clock.